All right, I'm back. Shout out to Caribbean Freddy. I did a reply to his reply. He replied to my reply, so I'm gonna reply to his reply, or however it works. You know, if you've been following, we've been discussing, I guess, the nature, the shape, and the very nature of the fabric of our known terrain and the reality, and probably the fabric of reality in total. Considering the title of this new video that you did, Freddie, is very interesting. Tone space. How can you prove anything outside your brain exists? I really like that. Earth is still round, by the way. I think it's round too. I've been real busy, so I downloaded this video because I see you took it all down. I knew that it was going to take me a while, a couple days before I could really like sit down and listen to this. So this is my first time watching it, so I'll react as I peep it. Here we go.
That was a good video. You made some good points, but there are a few that I want to cover. You said that NASA could just be like a cover-up for us to pay taxes, so the government could just fund a shady agency. As you said, I think NASA is only getting like, what, 3 to 4%?
Something like that.
I don't see why they would even keep funding something that dumb. I think they could come up with a better scheme. Do you know how many federal agencies the government has? They have like a shitload of agencies just serving no purpose at all. Google how many agencies the federal government operates. There are so many. I think they could cancel out NASA and come up with something better and take more taxes from us. NASA, just as you said, 3 to 4%. That's not.
I agree with that. With as much money as they get for like total nonsense, yeah. Why would, and NASA being such like a huge, fantastic thing, going to Mars and putting people on Mars, yeah. How come the budget for that isn't like 13-20%? I could agree with that.
I don't see that being some type of shady cover operation to get a lot of money. NASA, it's so small. No one. I never heard of someone saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to study to go work at NASA." It's like a very small percentage of people in the population that have dreams of working at NASA. I just don't see that being profitable.
That's true, but you brought up a good point. You're bringing up a great point on like why are they taking so little money? You know what I mean? But like you said, so little people study to get down with NASA and everything. So as far as if they really wanted to hide this situation, the fabric, the nature of our reality, shit, it helps where there's just such a small, minute percent of people that even get to that level to find out, you know, the truth, if you will, you know, if our terrain is not a netted plane and more of a regular plane, you feel me? And I find it interesting. Now, I can't say this with 100% fact, but from the little, you know, from the YouTube, and I'm gonna keep it a buck, from the YouTubing I've done, it seems like every person that works for NASA, or a notable person that works for NASA, is part of a Masonic order, is a Mason. Some people make the claims that every single person that works for NASA is a Mason. I'm not gonna say that. I'm sure there's females that work for NASA. They're not Masons because Masons are men. Are the females Eastern Stars? You know what I'm saying? See, that's where it gets, you know, a little tricky if you don't know specifically what you're talking about. But it's been purported that a lot of people and a lot of top tier people in NASA are part of a Masonic order.
In a big scheme, but if you say so. But this right here stood out to me, Tone Space.
Two things. Think of it like putting like a flashlight on like a flat surface. You know, it's gonna illuminate up to a certain level. It's not gonna illuminate the whole thing that you put it on the surface. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah. So I guess the sun could be just rotating above the atmosphere, giving us night and day. But you still don't explain seasons. But I decided to go with your theory, right?
I did, when I played back my video, I realized I could have explained or let's say the theory of seasons on the alleged flat earth a lot better. Like, I believe potentially, you know, the sun is about 3,000 miles above us, but at times it may dip a little lower or dip a little higher. But seasons is the most studied explanation of the seasons is basically the sun. I kind of said it wrong. The sun doesn't circle around the roundish flat earth exactly. More so, it spirals. You feel me? So now the outer edge would be the Arctic Circle that we call Antarctica, right? So during the year, every day it rotates around our disk, right? However, throughout the year, the changes of seasons is based on its spiraling. So let's say it'll be at the outer edges and it'll do a rotation, a faster rotation around that day. As the days and months go on, it'll start going inward and inward and inward and inward. And then 6 months later, it'll start going back outward and outward and outward and outward. You know what I mean? It spirals. So that, to me, that's a real simple explanation of the seasons. The seasons change in different parts of the earth, you know, wherever you're the closest to where you're going to get the most sun. So when it's around that Arctic Circle or whatever, that's probably going to be like around our winter time, because the sun is not, you know, the sun is way farther away from us. We see it in the sky and it circles around us every day, but it's not closer to us. It's still far away. When it's our summer, will be when, during its spiraling rotation, it's closer to us. You feel me? So it spirals. That's a better explanation than saying it circles around the earth. It just goes inward, outward, spirals inward, outward, and it change. You know, the seasons change based on its position during its yearly spiral.
I got myself a bowl and a flashlight.
All right, you busted out the props, okay?
Too high. Everywhere it gets light. Right? Your theory only works if I come down close. If I come down close, then only one part gets light. And then the sun could probably be rotating. So everywhere gets night and day.
Right, and 3,000 miles above us is relatively close considering the huge, because we know the Earth is still the known Earth is still extremely large. So yeah, 3,000 miles up is enough to give a spotlight. In fact, if you look at balloon flights that go up and stuff like that, you could actually see the spotlighting of the Earth. If you check out some videos of that, that go like way up in the sky, it actually looks like they're close to the sun. It's bugged out. You'll see like the sun, like this big shining thing that it just looks real close. But even if you don't buy into it being real close just by them looking at the sun, look at what the sun shines on and you'll see it makes a spotlight. You feel me? If we were on a rotating ball and the sun is this big, huge thing, it's not going to create just a spotlight. So you could actually see the sun doing exactly what I said, or what I theorize, or what people theorize it does, spotlighting the earth from a local close position. In some videos of the sun way up above, you'll see just that one spotlight on it. You won't see the sun shining on the whole thing. It's bugged out. I mean, it's still going to illuminate a vast part. You know what I mean? It's enough where it could still illuminate half of it to make it daytime. But even still, wherever that sun is, that's where it's going to give a concentrated thing of light as well. Just like in your picture. You know, you can see when you put it closer, it has a concentration of the light somewhere. But still, it's able to light up a good part of it as well.
But you still don't explain how some parts of the world are cold as hell. And then some parts...
When it's spiraling outward... And when it's our winter is when the sun's spiraling outward, it's moving around the edges of the Arctic Circle, cold as a motherfucker for us because it's not close to us. When it gets closer to the tropics and the Mediterranean and all that stuff, gets closer to where we are, boom. It's summertime because it's nearby us. It's still doing a revolution once a day, but it's closer to us in its spiral, you know?
So the year is hot as hell. So this hydrogen ball of fire, actually programmed to do.
We got to unlearn what they tell us. I personally don't believe it's a hydrogen ball of fire as well. That's why I say it's like peeling back an onion, because all of this stuff has been fed to us. Oh, it's a big hydrogen ball of fire, yet they can't show you a real picture of it and, you know, a real picture of space. So it's like you got to like unlearn everything. You got to unlearn gravity. You got to act like, and this is an interesting thing. and I've said this many times, just imagine we've never been taught any of this. We've never been taught that we are on a ball and there's this magical force called gravity that on the other side of the earth, it's upside down in comparison to where we are, but there's this magical force of gravity that's strong enough to push and keep everything stuck to that ball. Yet at the same time, a feather or things lighter than air can still float. So, it's you could say gravity's racist. It's fair to some things. It's in favor of us and keeping us attached to it. But something like a feather or a bird or a plane, that could just float on up or float away or move on up with prejudice, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? It's just imagine we were never taught any of that shit and we were just relying on our observational senses. Do you think any of us are going to, without all these, Pythagorean theories and all this complex math that people put out there to explain why we're on a netted plane as opposed to just a plane, right? I think most of us will just observe our reality and think that, we're just on a flat surface. I don't think anybody's going to be thinking that there's an underside to us on a netted plane where people are sticking from gravity. No, if it's heavier than the air around it, it's going to fall down. If it's lighter than the air around it, it's going to go upwards. Heavier than the air around this is called density. And that's why things fall. And that's why things can go from up to down or stick to the ground because it's heavier than the air around it. And hydrogen or helium balloons and feathers and stuff like that, if it's lighter than the air around it, it goes up. Or buoyancy. You know what I'm saying? So just it's like you got to unlearn everything. Just imagine you never were taught any of that type of stuff. And you just observe things. Like how the sun actually looks like it's moving in the sky. No one's going to think, oh, we're on this like planet, this balled up thing. And the sun is this big thing a long ways away. And our planet moves and everything. No, we're going to think that we're as stationary as it looks, as our observational senses tell us that this plane isn't moving. And as we see the sun and the moon look like it's moving around, we're going to think it's moving around. It's like I said, to me, reality, God didn't give us reality to be complicated. As simple as it looks, as we observe it, is as simple as it is. That's how the first clocks were made. That's how sundials were made. Sundials were made by people observing the simple ass sky, doing its simple ass shit. So they started chronologically marking time based on what they observe. And it had nothing to do with being on a planet that moves at 1,060 or some big hydrogen ball 400 times away from you. None of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Our society was built and things were built off of simple observation. It was until these other orders and institutions came in and then they started coming up with all this complex math with just interestingly enough, just so happens to have a lot of 666. You look at a lot of math, you're going to see a whole bunch of sixes in succession in the math that they come up for things. That's a whole nother story. Not really another story, just an interesting side note. The world is reality is a lot simpler than people try to make it. They want reality to seem like it's above our heads so we could feel like the stupid ones. Oh, I don't got a degree in Newtonian physics. I'm not supposed to know that. That's for them complex people. So that we can't feel comfortable in our own environment and own our own environment by recognizing that we have a full comprehension and a full grasp on the nature that God gave us. That right there is enough of a reason for them to fake some old other shit. So that we can not trust our own senses. So that we could feel inferior as far as our own common sense.
Something for part of the year and then go back to his regular schedule for another part of the year. And that's why we believe the earth is tilted on its axis. That's how we get seasons. But with the flat earth theory, the sun has to be doing its own thing. It has to be going
spirals,
going like this for some parts of the year, and then it will have to go wider for
My
North
man,
America to have summer.
Thank you. You just proved what I just said. Observational senses. It's like you figured it out before you watch this video of me explaining how it's been explained or how people observe it to be. You just proved my point. It would have to do this in order for seasons to make sense, and that's what anyone did when they look at the sky and they see the sun move and they notice, oh, it must go outer, it must go wider, it must move inner. You just did the very thing that I said. Use your own observational senses and take a look at things and, logically deduce it and come up with a conclusion. You just proved the point that I said. Using your own mind to figure some shit out, as opposed to all the Newtonian physics and Pythagorean theories and all this old extra nonsense. Thank you, Freddy.
I don't see that. I just don't see the sun being programmed like that. It's just, it makes more sense for it to be fixed on its axis, tilted on its axis, rotating on its axis, and it's going around the sun.
I guarantee you, if you weren't taught about it being tilted on its axis from kindergarten on up, you wouldn't be thinking it would make more sense for it to be tilted on its axis in a big plane, in a big netted plane that they call a planet, with this big hydrogen, helium, whatever thing that's 400 times bigger than the Earth, way out in the infinite universe, and that we're spinning around. You wouldn't be thinking that if motherfuckers didn't tell you to think that. And just put that information on you and say, this is true. We're not going to show you the actual proof that it's true. We're going to say this force called gravity, not only could it have you stick to the ground, and on the other side of the earth stick to the ground, yet water, which is always at a level surface, no, the water's going to stick to the bald earth. But gravity also has this other magical property, whereas if you have a huge, large mass, and then if you put a much smaller mass in orbit, as they call it, next to this large mass, you know what it's going to do? It's going to start revolving around the large mass. Yeah, that's true. It's never been done on a microcosm. There is no laboratory where they have a miniature Earth, and they take this miniature moon, and they throw it near that miniature Earth, and it ends up orbiting around it. That has never happened. That aspect of gravity has never been proven. And the other aspect of gravity is just explained by the properties of density and buoyancy.
That sort of programming makes more sense, but this programming where it's just doing something for part of the year and then it just switches to go.
And speaking of microcosms and macrocosms, just like how you figured out it would make sense if it spirals, right? Sun spirals, nature spirals. Everything is a microcosm, macrocosm. Nature is poetic. It gives us small examples of big things, big examples of small things. When flowers open, bloom, and blossom, they come out spiraling. You know what I'm saying? Even though it may not be a spiral, you drop a rock in the water, it ripples. You could find so many small examples in nature that are examples of what goes on in our sky, that goes on the big scale, on the big level. Nature has a way of sprouting itself, is a spiraling type of thing. So the nature of reality is very, very poetic. I love it.
Yeah, come on, Tone Space. I don't see it. I don't see it. Plus, you got to explain, as I said, if it's too high, everywhere will have sunlight. You got to get down low.
3,000 miles up.
Effect. But if you get down too low, it's just going to get too hot, right? So you gotta do the math on that one. How hot is the sun? How low does it have to be? How come when planes fly high, how come we all don't burn up? See, you gotta do the math on that one. It's just, I just don't buy it. The sun has to be super full, as scientists say. So I'm gonna go with the round Earth theory. And you also brought up this point. I always find this one funny.
Back in the day when today is a reality. So, shit, I think you even entertain the idea that we live in a holographic existence and shit like that. That shit sounds kooky. To me, that sounds even kookier.
Sounds bugged the fuck out.
Being not spherical, and our universe not being ever expanded.
Tone Space, prove it wrong. Nobody can ever prove this wrong. Prove that anything outside your brain is real. You cannot, because you cannot operate outside of your own brain.
Right, and I'm with you on that. That's the whole point that I'm making. It sounds kooky as a motherfucker. No matter if you can prove it right or wrong, it's still gonna sound crazy. But that's the point I'm making. I rock with that and I entertain that theory. I think it's very sound reasoning, and it's like you said, it's impossible to prove wrong. Just as impossible as it is to prove gravity right. You can't prove that anything out your own brain exists. You know what I'm saying? So that's the point I'm making. Like, yeah, I rock with that, even though that sounds crazy. Just to let you know that just because something sounds bugged out and crazy, don't just write it off. Don't just write it off. Take a deeper look into it. And like I said, my main point, the only point I was trying to make is that sound reasoning goes into the notion of our Earth not being a spinning, rotating ball and our universe not being some ever-expanding, infinite thing. Sound reasoning is why people come to this conclusion, not crackpot cuckoo shit. You know what I'm saying?
Everything in this world, everything you believe in, this conversation we're having, it all has to be filtered through your brain. Shit, we could even go a step deeper. Prove that your own brain is real, right? Go get some type of surgery done, right? Stay awake during the surgery and let the doctor show you your own brain. The trick is you're processing that information within your own brain. There's nothing in this world that isn't processed through your own brain. Your reality comes from your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So let that thought bother you. Let that thought keep you up at night. So you can look at it in a way I say we're living in a simulation. No, this shit is real. This shit is real to you and only you. Life is what you make it. But in the end space, everything is processed through your brain. You see the world in the way you want to see it.
Yep.
You all see the world differently.
Yep.
Shit. I could be a green 8-foot tall monster.
Mm-hmm.
But in your brain, you could
You
just
probably
see
are.
the
Nah.
person.
I was kidding.
Everything is filtered through your brain. All this could just be a goddamn illusion to in space. And guess what? You can't prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
How can you prove me wrong? How can you even prove I exist? It goes deep to in space.
Mm-hmm.
What if your mind is the only mind that exists? How can you prove your own self wrong?
Yo, I'm the choir,
Everything
B.
is processed through your brain.
Yeah.
Technically, in the head, your thoughts are the only thing that matter. You cannot prove that anything outside your brain exists
Yup.
because you cannot operate outside your own brain. That's the point I'm trying to get at. It's fucked up.
And to go into a little further stuff, as you might already be aware, the double slit experiment, reality only materializes when it's observed by the observer, meaning that, just like a computer game, how they make it to save space and everything, or to save power, only the thing that you could see in the computer game is actually materialized. Everything else is just digital code until it's focused on. That's how they say the nature of our reality is. Everything is wavy, everything is digital code, whatever you want to call it, until it's observed by the observer. So what's in back of me doesn't exist until I observe it. Even though the web through the camera, I can see it, which is a whole another bugged out element to it, but we ain't gonna go into all of that. But I'm just saying, I'm rocking with you on this.
Scary thought, but hey, it is what it is.
All right. And that's that. So, yeah, check out, if you haven't checked out again, man, check out that joint. I linked it to you another joint, the 200 proofs that we're not on a spinning ball or something like that. You're going to find a lot of stuff. It's going to be like, maybe at least a quarter of that is going to have you thinking like, okay, I could see why people, would consider this as a thing. You feel me? So, yeah, I hope everybody got something out of that. Shout out to Freddy once again. Catch you on the read bit down.